preparing to live stream. It is recording right now, so I'm going to start the Zoom recording. So it'll just take us a minute to go live, and we are live. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host, Louisa, host, researcher, and investigative researcher, reporter, Louisa. I don't want to undersell myself anymore. So it just feels so weird saying host because I just don't feel like one. Okay, so it is. Where's my notes? It's a Friday night. It's date night with the GoldFish Report. How's everybody doing? Friday, May 15th, 2020. It's GoldFish Report number 494. And our conversation tonight is going to rock your socks. We have, continuing with our Steel Magnolias series, is returning Steel Magnolias, two incredible women, and I'm going to take some time to introduce each one of them. You are familiar with them if you've watched GoldFish Report, and if you know anything about crop circles, you certainly know who they are. So we're going to be talking tonight about plasma physics and about crop circle creations. And let's start first tonight with let me get my bios up here. Let's start with Patty Greer, who is one of the hardest working UFO filmmakers in the world. She completed 8 full feature UFO movies in 10 years. They received 8 prestigious awards. This includes 5 EBE awards at the largest UFO film festival in the world, the International UFO Congress Convention. Her movies are unrelenting, explosive footage and evidence about crop circle phenomena. Greer's conclusions after producing 8 UFO crop circle movies was that crop circles are produced by counter-rotating, spinning plasma vortices coming out of the Earth. The spinning plasma vortices are layered with specific frequencies with distinct boundary conditions, including Earth frequencies, water frequencies, sometimes human consciousness frequencies when we pray or meditate for a crop circle, and sometimes ET frequencies, but not necessarily all of them in formation. We are going to talk about this in great detail. We are going to be screen sharing some of Patty's amazing work on this report tonight. So everybody, welcome. Thanks, Patty, for coming back to the GoldFish Report. Thanks for joining me.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Louisa. You forgot the word amazing. If you're going to introduce yourself, don't hold back.
Thanks. Yeah, no, me. I'm the little quiet one. So, and of course, we also have with us, and again, another incredible Steel Magnolia, Penny Kelly, who is a writer, teacher, author, publisher, consultant, and naturopathic physician. Early in her career, she was an engineer for Chrysler Corporation, but left there in 1979 after full spontaneous awakening of Kundalini to study the brain, consciousness, intelligence, intuition, and cognition. This was followed by 18 years of work as an educational consultant specializing in accelerated and brain-compatible teaching and learning, working with both schools and corporations. I have to just say, I mean, there's a great background here, and I want to after purchasing acreage in 1987, she raised grapes for Welsh Foods for a dozen years while also building Lily Hill Farm, now a large B&B. She worked with Dr. W.M. Levingood, biophysicist, for 15 years, studying materials from crop circles and animal mutilations and researching plasma, energy, and consciousness. Very interesting. And a lot of this has to do with, we're going to talk about this in more detail as well, the things that Dr. Leavenworth talked about. And his area of expertise was how plants transport ions through their cells. So among other areas of specialty. Penny was involved in community gardening in Kalamazoo and Battle Creek, Michigan through grants from the Kellogg Foundation. She was a member of the Tipping Point Network, whose focus is sustainability in all sectors of life, and has been a Flow Fund recipient through Marian Rockefeller Weber. She maintains a worldwide counseling and coaching practice, teaches online courses in developing intuition, and travels widely to speak and teach. Penny holds a degree in humanistic studies from Wayne State University and a degree in naturopathic medicine from Clayton College of Natural Health. She is the mother of 4 children, has co-written or edited 23 books with others, and has written 9 books of her own. We're going to be featuring some excerpts from one of her books tonight, which is going to be really fascinating, folks. This is about energy. This is about mind, space, consciousness, and energy. We've got some really fascinating things we're going to talk about. Thank you, everyone. Welcome, Penny and Penny. Thank you for coming back to the Goldfish. Welcome, Goldfish Report. Welcome back.
It is good to be back.
Yeah, I was
Very
like,
good. Yeah,
putting it all
you
out
could
there.
have skipped all of that because I think I'd rather spend the time talking about what we're going to talk about. Who cares what my background is?
No, well, you know what? It's significant because you both
Yeah.
are very accomplished women in your fields. And I am so honored to have both of you. Just want you to both know that I'm very honored to have you both on the Goldfish Report tonight. And thank you again for coming back to the Goldfish Report. I
My
truly mean
pleasure.
that. One of the things, but before we get started on this fascinating topic, we kind of wanted to, because we're in different areas of the country, we wanted to kind of check in, thanks to Patty's advice as to what's going on in the state of our states where we're physically located in terms of how things are progressing with this uh, I would say scamdemic. So how about you, Penny? Why don't you let us know where you are roughly and how things are going over there?
Well, we have this state that has been extended until the end of May, and there have been little noises like maybe they're going to extend it again. So we have a governor, we call her Wretched Whitmer. Her real name is Gretchen. But she is really has been a Rockefeller. She was an employee of George Soros or an associate of George Soros for many years. And I don't know if that's where she's getting her ideas or what, but I have myself personally worked at home for 30 some years. So for me, there wasn't a whole lot of difference except for that you can't go out. You can't, you have to wear a mask. You can't enter stores without a mask. I'm refusing to wear a mask at all. It's like, no, why don't you just tell me I have to wear a burqa? And so the attitude that I have is, no, I'm not doing that. And so I've been really confined to home, and that has been difficult. They have closed the beaches. There's like 3,000 miles of beaches in Michigan. They've closed the parks. They have gone after people. There have been shootings. There have been protests, all kinds of stuff. People are angry. People are saying, this is crap. This is not good. I'm sure there's people who are scared, but those are the people who really don't understand the bacteria, the virus, COVID-19. They don't really see the bigger picture. And so here we are. We're
Right.
waiting to be released.
And Patty, why don't you tell us where you're roughly located and what's the latest over there in your state?
I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and lucky for me, I love my home. I work from home, and I'm old enough to want to be here instead of be shopping in Boulder anyway. I owned a store on the mall for 18 years. I played music in bands for 30. So for me, I'm hardly noticing, but when I go to town, holy crap, am I noticing? People are in their cars alone with a mask on. What?
Yeah.
I can't even believe it. And every store, the few that are open, McGuckin's Hardware, fabulous. You have to stand 10 feet apart in a line, which goes on forever, and everybody's in a mask, and most of them are on their phone. And I'm feeling almost embarrassed to be human. When I go out and I see, today I had a weird thing in my eye, so I had to go to an eye doctor, and you have to wear a mask and gloves to go to a lot of places. And I do it out of respect to them, but I don't believe in it at all. I also do an awful lot of C60, so I never get sick, and I don't think I will. But I still feel like you called it what did you call it? A crime-demic?
A scamdemic, yeah.
Scamdemic. I call it a plandemic because they planned it at Event 201. So everywhere I went today, I apologized to the dentist or the eye doctor, and I apologized to the chiropractor because I just felt so embarrassed that our government is making us do this for the flu. And in my opinion, yeah, this is pretty serious, but to see the entire world months later still locked down like this is unnatural. And everybody in a mask. or people get mad at each other. Hiking on a hiking trail, you have to wear a mask. What? We're in the mountains on a hiking trail and you have to wear a mask. And there's a, a sandwich board that tells you at the beginning of the hiking trail. So for me, I'm really glad I work at home and I love my home, because every time I go to town, I find myself embarrassed to be human. I mean, I just feel like this obeying level of servitude with a mask is like slavery. It really, and everywhere you go, all you see is people's eyes, like the burqa you were saying.
Yes.
It's very offensive to people. It's very dehumanizing, and everybody's doing it. Everybody's obeying. The chiropractor said to me, "Did you hear the other chiropractor got shut down because he opened early?" A restaurant owner got shut down, but they don't just shut you down in Colorado, they take your license. So what I think we're going to see is that politically, I think our headmaster of America is letting all these governors misbehave and abuse us, so that all of a sudden there's going to be this big bowling ball that's going to roll over all these pins of abusive, like yours in Michigan. She's got to go. And when all of a sudden they have this apparent power to abuse all of us, to make us wear a mask everywhere we go, is ridiculous. It's insulting, and it's not helping us stay well.
Well, I have to tell you that over in the tri-state area, the New York, New Jersey tri-state area, it's pretty fascist here. I feel like I'm in communist China. It's really, like I said, I was telling you right before we started the program that there were signs saying, like electric signs on the road, saying, remember, or, obey social distancing and vehicle distancing. I'm like, what the hell is that? It's really great. It is crazy, Veronica. It totally is. She's over in Sweden. She's a viewer in Sweden. We have a viewer from Australia too. They're all checking into the live chat, and I'll be doing that from time to time, trying not to interrupt the flow of the interview. But when we go live, we do enjoy the interaction of our live chat viewers who join us for this report. But I'll tell you, this all has to do now. I mean, is this having an impact? We're going to talk about consciousness, energy, plasma, morphogenic fields. We're going to talk all about this. Is this impacting, let me ask Penny, is this impacting the morphogenic field right now? And if so, how is it impacting it?
Well, without getting too technical, I'm just going to say that consciousness is an endless field of electromagnetic fields and particles and currents of various kinds of electricity, etc. And consciousness comes out of those fields. It is not something that comes out of the brain. So anyways, when you have a group of people or a civilization, they have a matrix of fields and particles. All those fields and particles are held in a particular relationship. Change any one of them, and you change the consciousness and the actions and the interactions of everything. So when you have something this big that happens, and you have mass consciousness being impacted, then what you get are massive changes in perception that will have fallout for years to come, years. So, and I do tell people, I'm sorry to talk about plasma, and yet I'm fascinated by plasma. I love plasma because plasma responds directly to consciousness. And I do have a little course that I have put out. It does cost a few bucks, $15 to go and watch that on my Patreon page. But if you want to understand plasma and consciousness, you might want to consider going there. And I hate to toot my own horn in the middle of a live thing, but it's really, I think we have to make this shift in order to move into the new paradigm. We have to understand the new science so that we have a new basis for what we're doing.
Yeah, we're going to talk, and it's okay to get technical. It really is okay to get technical on this, because you know what? The thing is that if there's a term or a concept that someone doesn't understand, if you're in the live chat, you know, ask for a little bit more clarification. And if you're not, if you're watching this after it's been recorded, just go Google it and look it up, and you can do your own research and kind of fill in the blanks. It's okay to get a little bit technical. But we're talking, you know, it's really funny because as I you know, studied and looked into plasma, it doesn't seem like there's a complete agreement on what plasma actually, you know, I guess what the definition of plasma is. It seems to, there seems to be some debate, or I should say maybe disagreement on what plasma is. And let me just explain that. I took so many notes. Just hang on one second. Okay, so okay, so okay, so there's another kind of classification called warm dense matter. So people who are of that theory and that mind, who think that warm dense matter is part of plasma, um, it is, I guess, classified under plasma physics. But then I think the question is about whether the gas is sufficiently ionized, and so I think that's the question. Is that really? It's really very specific. Can you explain that?
Right. So I'm just going to say that before there was any really good research done on plasma, the old definition, old school, before the electric universe, all of that came to be. There was this idea that was put out there that a plasma was a gas containing a bunch of particles. They weren't really thinking of it as an electromagnetic field, which has this characteristic of creating these filaments. And the particles line up along the filaments. And so they just, all they were seeing was, look at all these particles. You know, they're all maintaining a specific relationship to one another. And that specific relationship is what maintains your matter, your material self. If we disturb those, they reorganize themselves. They're magic. What is that about? And so they didn't have an explanation for that. And they weren't thinking that, oh, there's an electromagnetic field here, and, you know, move the field and the particles move. But if you only move the particles and the field doesn't move, particles all go back to where they were. So it's the same kind of concept as a, how do you say it, like magnetic filings, iron filings under, you know, with a magnet under the paper, you can make all kinds of signs. That's the concept that was not understood. And there were lots of arguments back and forth, but it's pretty much, there's never what we call in science proof. There's just, we agree, pretty much everybody agrees that this is what is, this is how it works. And that gets changed only through some really serious arguing back and forth. Somebody comes up with something new. You know, everybody says, oh, no, no, no. And then through a series of, there'll be a brilliant person able to set up a project, a research demonstration. Everybody go, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of what happens in science, right? It's just like, you know, Dr. Fauci saying something like, you know, hydroxychloroquine doesn't, you know, treat, you know, coronavirus. And then you have, you know, Dr. Judy Mikovits saying, oh, yes, it does. And in fact, you said it did 15 years ago. So, you know, I mean, that kind of arguing in science, right? So,
that's really true.
Yeah.
You know, and when you are in alignment with the truth before, you know, people get corrupted or get, you know, their mind changed by whatever. Who knows why Fauci is contradicting what he said earlier? We don't know. But the fact of the matter is that most people really don't understand viruses. They don't really understand how we, you know, I've been saying for many, many years, we have to reconnect with nature. Some people think, oh, okay, so I need to hug trees or something like that. And that's not what I'm meaning at all. I'm meaning we have to really understand how we fit into this whole soup of particles, which include bacteria, viruses, all sorts of things. And then we have to take that and we have to understand how we fit into the galactic community, because there's all kinds of beings out there. And so when you look at the spectrum of things that are, I'm going to say, possible, or things that we need to learn, wow, we're in kindergarten.
Oh, I agree. And someone here is talking about post-plasma.
Post-plasma.
Are you familiar with that term?
I'm not, I could make some guesses, but if they
non-thermal state of matter, is that?
Yeah, right.
Is that okay?
It doesn't really have anything. Plasma is a house of fields, period. That's really the best definition. It's a whole bunch of electromagnetic fields all moving continuously in the same direction and with the same amount of force. And that's what holds the particles in place. And every human being is a collection of plasma.
Okay, let me just play this. You can comment on it, and then we're going to go to Patty in a second. But I want to screen share this. And I think you're talking about the Lorentz force. Is that what you're talking about, that holds these plasma vortices together? Because then we're going to get into these crop circles and how these are created. So let me just play this, and then you can comment on this.
So the reason that the arc rotates like this is because there is a Lorentz force acting on it. A Lorentz force is the force that a magnetic field applies to a moving electric charge. The current flowing through the arc is interacting with the magnetic field from the magnet. We can accurately predict the direction that the arc will rotate as long as we know which side of the magnet is the north side and we know what the polarity of each of the electrodes are. What we'll use to determine the direction of rotation is called the right-hand rule.
Okay, so there's a description about this, and I'm not going to go into it, but he's explaining the vortices, and it's the Lorentz force that causes the arc to rotate in this direction. Did you want to comment on that, Patty, before we move?
That's nothing I've ever studied, so I can't comment.
I'm sorry, Penny, do you want to comment on that before? Yes, you have, but I'm going to show you how you have. But Penny, did you want to comment on that?
Just that is such a tiny, tiny aspect of plasma and the whole understanding of plasma, that to try to explain that would just confuse people further. I will say that plasma that's rotating in a right-hand direction is destructive. Plasma that's rotating in a left-hand direction is constructive. And so there's much more to that whole rotation, etc.
But the force itself is what also holds it together, that force that they're referring to in terms of this Lorentz force.
Again, so
that's what makes it a vortex. Is that what makes it a vortex, in other words?
No.
Okay.
No, not even close. I mean, the Lorentz force is something that has been studied and is really pretty much accepted. But it's, again, it's a tiny piece of something that has moved on from the basics. And what I think is people have to understand the basics. If you have a bunch of particles moving in a direction, that's called a current. Anytime you have particles moving as a current, you are going to have an electromagnetic field circling around that in the form of a spiral. It's going to be going to the left, or it's going to be going to the right. And if it's going to the left, it's probably going to be right next to one that's going to the right. And they kind of keep each other going. And so, and some of that is stuff that I've seen clairvoyantly. Some of that is stuff that we did in the lab or worked with in the lab, etc.
Okay, I'm going to screen share a clip from one of Patty's movies called Orbs and Light Beings. And Patty, maybe you can describe what's going on here. I'm not going to put the volume on, so I can let you describe. You can even narrate it, as you did in the movie itself, but you can explain to us what's going on here.
I'm excited. I don't know what part you picked.
The very beginning.
Oh, God.
Orbs.
Yep.
You can't play the volume? It was a great opening.
I can. If you'd like me to, I certainly will.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you might want to narrate it, but that's okay. I'll play it.
The elders were correct. As the last remnants of greed and corruption slip away, humanity has realigned with the higher dimensions. Illumined beings are presenting themselves, and many of us are seeing them. My experience began in the center of an English crop circle, and I've seen them ever since. Light beings, orbs, tubes of light, and all the others. People from around the world are photographing them and communicating with them. Steeped in spiritual history and laced with sacred sites, Wiltshire, England has been home to more crop circles than anywhere else in the world for the last 30 years. Could it be the energy of the ancient stone circles that draw the circle makers to use this as a canvas? Could it be that Stonehenge is on the outer edge, and the Avebury stone circle sits in the center of this phenomena, where 3 underground streams meet? I had an amazing experience of meeting 4 different groups of people from 3 different countries, and I met them in different places around southern England, and all of them told me a similar story about seeing orange balls of light over a particular crop circle in East Field on July 29th, 2010.
We're going to stop there because Patty, this is what we're trying to, are these plasma balls? Is that what we're looking at here?
What you're seeing is the base of a spinning vortex of plasma that's heated up to the point where it lights up like a ball of light.
Okay.
So I believe that those spinning balls, or the orbs, are spinning energy fields at the base of the vortex. Penny, would you agree?
Yeah,
Yes?
because the charge builds up at the base of that vortex, and it sometimes can approach 10,000 volts.
Okay, so in order to generate something like this that glows, this has to be extremely high temperature. Is that correct?
Has nothing to do with temperature.
Okay. Kinetic energy?
Yeah, there are thermal qualities that are part of that vortex, but it's really the fact that when you start with this spinning and then you pinch that down to this little bitty thing at the bottom, that is spinning at a tremendous rate, causes things to light up, and that's where you get that ball.
Okay, so this is where we were going with this whole idea of the plasma vortexes. So this is what caused that. What you saw that, and we're going to play some other. I can't wait to get to the. Patty knows the part I want to get to really bad.
No, I don't. I'm excited.
Yes,
I love your
do.
shows. You're full of surprises. One of the things I'd like to mention, which to me is the difference between Penny and I. See the books? And she said that's one of 4 areas in her house packed with books. See the books behind me?
Yeah.
Mother Nature. Those are Mother Nature's books, all those rocks.
This is what I'm saying. My work is with the earth herself. And my work is all intuitive. I haven't read anything like Penny has. And her books are absolutely brilliant, but I haven't read 23 of them. So, my experience is different, but my plasma field, my energy, I know. The final example recent was that in February, I decided to go on a vacation. I had not heard anything about COVID-19. It wasn't really told to us, like it was going to be anything huge. And I was debating on, should I go to Mexico because I can work all day from a beautiful beach place, or should I? So anyway, I took this trip and I came back 2 days before the lockdown. Now, in my opinion, it felt very similar to what we saw when my boyfriend was walking around me as I was laying in a crop circle, passed out. He came with the camera and slowly walked around. And when I saw it, I went, oh, God, I bet I could use that. So that was part of what you just showed. And that's how my experiences happened. Now, I have not been able to really describe what shifted in my entire frontal cortex or my entire brain system. But what happened when I lay in that crop circle in 2007 changed the course of my life, and it changed the quality of my thinking forever. So I had a shift in frequency that changed the way my vision can see, what I think I'm seeing is plasma, which I've said for years, and I've seen it in different forms. But that day when I woke up after that shocking experience, I was drawing pictures of what I was seeing, and the word they gave me was amoebas. Some were round, some were like worm shape, but I've taught tons of people to see it as you relax your eyes, blah, blah, but you have to be in a frequency of relaxation where you're actually wanting to communicate with the earth and the sky and the other elementals or other dimensionals. So my work has not been analytical like Penny, although my conversations are constantly analytical, and I can keep up with the best of you guys because I listen really well, and I also intuit what I need to know. I mean, the 8 movies, there was no research. It was mostly experiential. And then when I met Penny, it was like, wait, what? I've made 6 crop circle movies, and I never knew what was happening, where they were coming from. And it was Penny who said to me, they're coming out of the earth. And I just about fell over. And I went to stay with her for 3 days, and I stayed 3 weeks and filmed everything. What? Would you like
And
to?
I have to say something. Let me interrupt here, Patty.
Please,
When you
please.
lay in a crop circle, when you stand, sit, lay on an area of earth in which there are energies spiraling out of that earth, and they're spiraling in a left hand, which is called the negative, which we don't want to associate with something bad, just meaning left hand. That direction, that is going to impact your entire energy system. And that's going to change your consciousness. It's going to change your health. That's really what a massive Kundalini experience is. It's this humongous rush of energy up through the body that changes all of those plasma relationships. And I think that's what you experienced in that field. You got out of that field and you were different.
Yeah. And I haven't been able to find my way back.
No,
So,
you can't.
to go back.
There's no going back.
nor would I want to. But I was in more than 100 crop circles. And what was interesting was when Penny and I came together, she said, I've never been in a crop circle. She'd never been, right? You've never been in a crop circle?
Never. No, but I have had them here on my farm. And I've seen the blue plasma balls racing up the driveway and then leaving their mark in my yard and up the hill. It's a pretty amazing sight.
A lot of people say that they see blue plasma balls sometimes. Not a lot of people. Some people have claimed this, that they have seen these, I guess, these plasma balls, I guess you say, and they're always blue, and they even come into the home of the person. And I don't know, is that establishing an energetic relationship with them, or are they manifesting that? Because we have some people commenting in the live chat saying, okay, crop circles are constructed using the Lorentz morphogenic field, does with a highly focused entities. Would you comment on that?
I would like to talk about where I believe the crop circles are coming from.
Yeah.
Now, the earth herself is a living being. She grows these flowers, she grows trees, and we drill the crap out of her, and we are doing unnatural things. And I think that part of what we're going through now is part of the earth saying to all of us, I need some quiet here. I mean, I think that part of our lockdown and the airplanes being way cut back is because she's sick of it. And she's very conscious. And so if the earth is a living being, which I believe she is, and a lot of people say, oh, the aliens inside the earth. It's like, I'm only talking about the earth herself, the beating heart of the earth. And I feel that what happened in the last summer was such a conscious earth move, where the last bunch of years in England, all the epicenter has always been known to be in Wiltshire, England. And we had, gosh, when I was there, 75 on average crop circles in Wiltshire alone, whereas there were 150, 175 documented around the world, almost half of them were in Wiltshire. And so you could fly in these little planes, and they were all pretty close. By July, you'd get quite a tour from there, and you could film a lot of them in a small period of time. But there is something about this area that the mother herself felt like it was a great place to deliver these messages. Two things always with crop circles: they're located over an aquifer of water. So water is definitely an important element to a crop circle on the surface, but also the crossing of two ley lines is usually a very interesting consistency, high 90% when we kind of looked at that a few years ago. So ley lines are direct lines between two sacred sites: churches, mounds, burial sites, Stonehenge, Avebury Stone Circle, Glastonbury, the Tor, all these places where people have pilgrimaged and brought their frequencies, brought their spiritual plasma fields, thousands of them walking together, creating this huge energy vortex headed towards Stonehenge. I'm getting chills down my legs, realizing that this is how we create energy fields and create change. So when we talk about worldwide meditation, everybody at the same time breathing in, it really makes a difference. And all those years ago when they said our thoughts create a reality, yeah, they really do.
Right.
So the discipline that I use with my brain is hardcore, because I know that even if I hurt, I don't want to think about it. I want to think about something great. So I can really move my field and everything that comes out of me to be Miss Patty Positive. Hey, I mean, I feel like that's what I do intentionally now. And it took discipline at first. Now it's easy because I know that my field emanates from me. And I know that we all do. And right now, everywhere I went, I was trying to make jokes about the fact that we were all in a mask, and ridiculous. So yeah.
So let me just screen share some of the crop circles while you're talking, and if you want to comment on them, you can, because you did mention in one of your videos that if you were to look at these in a 3D, if they were spun, it would show us propulsion technology and other kinds of technology that could change the way we do things on this planet. Did you want to explain any of these images here?
Yes, these are mostly England crop circles, and I'll tell you which ones, if you spin, look like technologies. But I wanted to say the punchline of why I was talking about the Wiltshire area being the epicenter of crop circles for the last 40 years that we know of. All of a sudden, this last summer, the epicenter moved to France. And that was massive. And we talked about it during our last show, that if we're talking about consciousness, and the earth being a living being who's conscious, who's sending out energy, who's giving us all these messages, for her to move to another country was a very intentional move. So bottom right corner, go back down to where you see the multi-spiral. So what you have here, this happened on a rainy night, bottom right corner. It's got 409 independent crop circles. So if you're in one circle, the first one you walk into is like, wow, this is great and so perfect. Oh, wait a minute, there's another one next to it. And by the time you get through one Fibonacci sequence, it's like, what? There was like 15 I just went through. And when you realize how many continue to happen, and there are these teeny little openings, like a small little walkway, you turn sideways to get into the next circle. But this particular one, my friend Charles Mallet, who ran the Crop Circle Center for many years, went in this crop circle at 5:30 in the morning. He said it was a rainy night, it was very cold in the morning, and there wasn't one footprint. Now, he's a documentarian as far as researching crop circles, and this 409 crop circle was absolutely immaculate, and he walked the whole perimeter before he went in. There wasn't a footprint in sight. So on a rainy night, there would have been muddy, sloshy, and if you spin that spiral of flawless mathematics called the Fibonacci sequence,
Right.
there's a series of them. When you spin it, it looks like a propulsion device.
This one, I think, is this the one that creates the toroidal field?
Very much so, probably. We'd have to spin it. In my movies, I spun a few of them, and you would never guess that some of these basic patterns go. Pull the video up, yeah, on the bottom right now. That one,
Okay.
go back down. Yeah, this one. When you spin that, you'd be amazed what it does. I mean, some of them that look so simple, when you spin them, they definitely look like a boat propeller. And in my opinion, when you spin a lot of them and they look like props, bottom left was also another great one. It looks like a gear,
Yes.
but when you spin it, it turns a whole different shaping. And it's amazing, really, what messages you can see when you spin them. 4 of my films are free. And I believe that the films that show this, it might be called The Shift Has Hit the Fan, might be the one. Shift Has Hit the Fan. I filmed it in 2013 at a free energy event. But what I wanted to say that the fact that the crop circle epicenter for all these years has been in England, and we were starting to be abused. The military came in, they were telling the farmers, don't let them in the fields, mow out the fields on the first day you see them if you want your government stipend. What? So the farmers were being forced to mow out the crop circles. And, we'd have to be really quick to fly over, but I just quit going. I'd made 8 films. I'd been there 10 years, and it was fantastic. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but all of a sudden it wasn't fun anymore. The farmers weren't friendly. Everybody's stressed. The police are going around at night. And we just stopped. And what did the earth do? She moved to France. And the French crop circles were stunning. And I remember I'd get the emails of, crop circle connector. Every time there's a new crop circle anywhere in the world, I'd get notified. It was like, France again. Oh, similar pattern to the last 1, 2, 3. So there was a very consistent message, in my opinion, which were these, it was like a straight axis with a lot of crescent moons and planets. So it looked like a lot of solar alignment information, and it was all around different sacred sites in France over aquifers. And she didn't even complain. She didn't even do an earthquake in England. She just said, see ya.
It's so fascinating that they have these aquifers underneath it. Patty, Penny, can you give us a little bit more of a science explanation as to what the significance is? It has to create some sort of resonance. I mean, there is something called morphic resonance. Yes, is that part of what's creating this?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot that I can say about the fact that water is moving underneath some of these crop circles. Because I just haven't studied that and I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth.
Okay.
I will say this, if you have a moving stream of any sort, and that can be air, that can be water, that can be earth moving, etc., you are going to have fields that are literally at the base of that or the cause of that movement. So the water is like a current of electricity, and it moves in a snaking pattern, and it's 2-dimensional moving. But if you can imagine, like one of those crop circles that we were just looking at, maybe it was called the Juliet. Is that one that had all those spirals that you were talking about, Patty?
The Juliet had 3 Fibonacci sequences in their spiral.
Okay, well, anyways, if you look at the way I see all of the interactions is that it's all 3-dimensional. It's all stuff that is moving. The heavier the stuff, the slower the movement. And so if you have water moving through the earth, you can bet your bottom dollar that there are going to be all kinds of fields and movement and pressures and changing electromagnetic fields that are coming off of that water and affecting all of the fields in the earth and around the earth and above. And so you get, because of the way that plasma moves, you get exactly what Patty was talking about. Every so often, the center of I'll call it this, maybe the center of gravity. I don't really know what the correct term would be, but that moves. And that moves around the Earth, and it depends on where that is in relationship to the North and the South Pole and the axis. And move those too much, and wow, when Patty said that they're coming out of France, my immediate thought was, uh-oh, that means that one of the center balance points, or perhaps pivot points, has shifted. You don't shift something like that inside a planet without getting eventually some sort of major other shifts that are occurring, and every one of those shifts is going to change the dynamics within electromagnetic fields and within the consciousness of whatever beings live on that planet or in that planet.
Interesting. Interesting. Is it so are we talking about fields? You're talking about this plasma being composed of many fields. Are we talking about an organizing field? Is it self-organizing?
Yes. Yes. And I want to say something, because you brought up morphogenetic fields a couple times. That's a term that is used by many people in the population who really don't know what it is, and who really don't get what that means, but that's not, I mean, maybe that's beginning to be used a little bit by some of the plasma physicists, but I haven't heard it. And it's Rupert Sheldrake popularized that term. And what he was trying to say was, hey, there's these fields. And I think that they shape what we see and what we experience and what we feel and what we know and all that stuff. And so it's kind of become a label. But the actual, I think, more precise or scientifically correct term is going to be an EM field, which if you get a plasma form, you're going to have these filaments, and those filaments really direct and control the direction and the placement of particles, and that's what then creates whatever the type of matter is. And so imagine for just a moment, you have certain kinds of fields, plasma fields, that make up your eyeball. You have another kind of plasma arrangement that makes up your toenails. You have something else that makes up your liver, another set of plasma fields that makes up your bowel or your stomach or your heart or your skin or whatever it is, your hair. If you want to talk some serious changes in plasma, and I don't want to get into some of what I know, or none of us will be on the on the tube at all. But you can erase or you can enhance a field. When you erase the field, you erase the matter. And that is the huge value of beginning to understand plasma, because if you have a tumor and you erase the fields that have formed that tumor, whoop, tumor's all gone. And that is what they are doing. That is the promise of plasma therapies, of the whole plasma, what I'll call shift away from Einsteinian kinds of things over to plasma physics.
So is this what Keshe was trying to do with his, he has this healing pen that's a plasma pen that's supposed to be used for healing.
Yes.
Is that the same concept?
Yes, I haven't used that. I typically try not to talk about things I haven't really used or experienced. Right. Yes. If you can change the field, then you can change the feeling. The field is what produces the feeling. It's the motion of that field. And it's not, even though they may be in stasis, they're not sitting still. The fields are spiraling at a tremendous rate. They're all impacting one another. It's a fascinating way of seeing reality and understanding that reality is much, much more dynamic than what we have thought. And if we can just get a few people get off the couch and get to be a little more dynamic in their own thinking and their own perception, wow, What
Right.
could we do?
Okay. Let me just go back to this concept of this aquifer underneath these crop circles. I'm going to give you a term, and in my ignorance, I'm going to say this, but yay or nay, right or wrong, can you comment on this?
Okay.
Magnetohydrodynamics.
Yeah. Okay. Where'd you get that term? That's a pretty sophisticated term.
Sure.
Okay. A lot of, I don't know that all, but a lot of the mathematics of magnetohydrodynamics have been figured out. That's what we are using to make, currents and fields line up, plasma getting particles to do certain things. Magneto means it's held in place by electromagnetic fields. Hydro means that these fields move like water, and dynamics means their interaction.
Okay, so is this part, would you say, the mechanisms or the fields that are involved? Would you say, I mean, we're just talking in theory with regard to, I know you haven't studied them, but in theory to how these crop circles, or at least the physics of some of how these crop circles are created. Do you believe that magnetohydrodynamics is involved in the creation of crop circles? In other words, maybe I should have asked a more simple question. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I would say that it's not a matter of belief. It is a matter of knowing magnetohydrodynamics when you do the math. And I asked Dr. Levengood at one point, what is that term? And he goes, oh, it's really hairy. And I was like, okay. And he said, there's all kinds of math and you have to know liquid dynamics and all this stuff. And you're working with all kinds of different factors. I couldn't do the math to save my soul. I never got into that part of it. My specialty was the consciousness and observing what was happening and then making stuff happen with that consciousness, which is why we ended up, writing a paper saying plasma responds directly to consciousness. But yeah, that is the basis. That is the mathematical term that you would use to say that's what's causing crop circles, is the magnetohydrodynamics. And that's the electric fields, the magnetic fields, the thermal fields, just all the different aspects that go into making up a vortex. And then, and the way that vortex moves and the pattern of all those fields and currents and layers, et cetera, within that vortex, that's what determines the pattern.
Okay, so based on
a mathematical pattern.
So based on cymatics, we've all seen cymatics, right? You've seen when someone puts a metal table down and hooks it up to like something that produces a vibration, a keyboard or something like that, and you put some salt or sand on it, and they press one tone, and it produces one frequency, and it creates a pattern on the actual metal sheet, right? You press another tone, which represents another frequency, and you get a completely different organization of these
fields.
Yeah, fields, exactly, which creates another pattern. Self-organizing. Okay, so you're saying it's intelligent. There's an intelligence in it.
Yes, there is. And when you get a pile of vortexes together, like you and I are piles of plasma vortices, you get a collection of intelligences. So the intelligence of the eye is going to maintain itself. The intelligence of the heart, of the liver, of the skin, all those are forms of intelligence that reorganize themselves over and over and over. And they'll be stable unless and until you introduce forces or aspects that will cause them to destabilize, and new forms, new tones are introduced, and you get sometimes you get terrible destruction. We call it degeneration within the body, but the body itself will respond as soon as you start doing something good for it. As soon as you return or restore its original music. It's like the body is a symphony.
Yeah.
And when you hear that, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning music, like nothing you can even imagine. And you only have to hear that a couple times and it just brings you to your knees. It's like, what is that music? And it's you. It's the sound of you.
So, and every person has their own prime frequency, and that would be the sum, the aggregate of all of those frequencies and vortices in your body. So, in other words, your heart's tuned to one, your heart. So, and not every instrument has the same, it has the same, I would say, in an orchestra, I would know this, right? I would say that
Patty would know.
each, yeah, we each, yeah. So each instrument has its own, I would say, range. Okay, they don't all have the same ranges, but they can all be tuned to the same frequency, but they don't all have the same range. So some ranges can be limited, others can some may have 2 octaves, some may have 8 octaves. So in other words, some could have a far greater ability to well, I guess also to go out of the greater number, like a piano. I mean, the greater number in a harp, right? The greater number of uh, of octaves you have, the more notes that go out of tune. So you have to tune those exactly. But the reason I'm asking about this intelligence is because of another clip from Patty's films that I'm going to share. It's Patty. Patty, it's my favorite one. So I'm going to.
Is it the Crystal Castle, I hope?
No, not this one. No, but this is the intelligence. This is where the conversation kind of we're talking about how it self-organizes, how it has a sense of intelligence, and how it kind of communicates. And this is exactly what you discovered, reversing a section of film. This is what you discovered. And I think, Patty, this is one of the most brilliant discoveries I think ever, aside from the fact that Dr. Fauci's a fraud. This is a great discovery. I'm sorry. I just have to throw that in there because he's a liar. Okay, Tony the rat. Okay, let's go share this here. And I'm sorry, he's just a liar. Okay, do you want me to play the volume?
Oh my God, Jim Delacoso. Oh, this is fabulous.
Okay,
it is.
Do you want to hear the original sound on this, or do you want to? Okay, all right.
Here we have these 3 lights flying over a field that it's not just forming a crop circle. In analyzing it frame by frame, there are ripples that are moving out like throwing a rock in a pond.
When Patty reversed it or slowed it down, she actually revealed the communication, which is instantaneous. When you have plasma, plasma communicates almost instantly. It travels immediately everywhere. And that's just one of the features of plasma.
Boom.
Wait, I want to go back because this is like the biggest discovery, I think. I'm sorry, when I said Dr. Fauci's a fraud, maybe I was being a little bit too rough, but I think that's just my opinion, because we have this scandemic going on. Because
don't forget his friend Billy.
Yeah,
monster.
Exactly. But look, we call it what it is, okay? I mean, I'm not trying to be, it's just so obvious to people that these people are such frauds. I'm sorry, but that's not what we're talking about right now. Let me just go back.
Hard not to.
I just had to draw that comparison. Okay, now look at this. This is phenomenal, Patty. You want to explain this for us?
What you're looking at is a moment that got me in unbelievable trouble, and I became the most hacked UFO filmmaker in history. It started, though, years earlier, so I'm guessing the only way they could have been so mean so long ago was Project Looking Glass, that they knew I was going to be the one to find it. But what's funny is the man that you put up, and I don't want to say his name other than Jim, was footage that was gifted to me in the most magical moment by a Native American named Bear Cloud. And he came up to me off the wall and said, I have something I need to give you. It's from my movie that I did where he paid that guy, Jim, to dissect the footage. And at that time, Jim said, exactly what you just saw, that it was real. When I contacted him, he said it was fake and this is a glitch. Everybody that had a voice in ufology, nobody acknowledged it still, hardly, even though I won 8 awards, 5 EBs. None of the ufologists ever wanted to talk with me about it. And I never pushed it, but once I met Penny, and then I got gifted this footage while I was making the movie of Jim Delatoso telling the truth. It was shocking to me, but everything was so perfect that I was supposed to be the one to bring it. But yes, oh my God, wait till I tell you the story, how I found the ball of light. So I ended my first movie, Crop Circle Update, the wake anybody listening? ? Very first movie. And I was doing it with this wonderful young guy. And we had this original footage. I didn't notice the communication yet, but we were showing the formation being formed in seconds. Mm-hmm. And so we finished the movie and I said, oh my God, 15 hours a day, I think we're done. Let's turn off the gear, take a break and go outside on the deck, drink some cold water, lemonade, whatever, and then come back in and watch the movie and see if we're done. So he said, okay. And he turned all the gear off and we started to walk out on the deck and I looked over my shoulder and I said, oh, we talked about this earlier. There's a blue orb on the monitor. And then I walked up and I was like, wait a minute, where'd that blue orb come from? It's not even in the movie. And he walked up and he looked at me and he went behind the gear and he came back and he looked at me and he said, Patty, everything's unplugged. There was a blue orb on the monitor. And I took a photo of it because it was huge and everything was unplugged. When I told Penny, and she said it in my final film, Crop Circle Diaries, she said a blue orb is a form of communicating energy. And the blue orbs are always there to communicate something important. And so there it was. And I said to the editor, even though I didn't know, I said, wow, that's weird. And all of a sudden, the goosebumps that oh God, don't do it yet. Oh, this is so great.
You want to hear it?
What happened was all of a sudden I could feel that my body had been taken over by that very same enhanced frequency that I get walking into a crop circle. And the kid looks at me and he goes, you look weird. And I said, look at the goosebumps on my arm. Mm-hmm. And he just looked at me and I said, they're in the house. We're not done. Sit back down. He said, I thought we were taking a break. And I said, sit back down and show me that footage that ends the movie. And he showed me the Oliver's Castle footage. And I was in such a state of goosebumps, chills, completely other dimensional. And I said, show it to me again. And he showed it to me again. And I said, reverse it. And he said, why? And I said, I don't know, just do it. And then he reversed it and I didn't see anything. And I said, slow it down. And he said, how slow? And I said, I don't know, 30%. Oh my God, where did that come from? Totally off the wall, totally from somewhere else. And he reversed it and slowed it down 30%. And bam, there was the communication. And I screamed in tears. And I said, oh my God, those balls communicated. And I sent that image, that screenshot out to so many people. And they all said, glitch, glitch, glitch. And when I finally met Penny Kelly in her home, I had a 9x11 glossy and I didn't tell her anything other than held up the picture. And I said, Penny, what's this? And she looked right at it and she said, wow, what a great shot of 2 plasma balls communicating. Where'd you get that? Instant. And that's exactly what I knew when I saw it. But I don't know anything because I don't read books. I'm not a scientist. All I knew was I knew what I was looking at. And when Penny acknowledged it after all these well-paid liars said glitch, glitch, glitch. And Jim Delatoso also said, oh, it's fake. You know, that's a glitch. But then I got the footage while I was finishing the film of him saying it's absolutely real. So I've been in a washing machine of it, but you were just about to show what happens when you spin A crop circle.
This is the one you were asking about before, and I did find the footage of it. So, do you want me to play the? I don't know what you're talking about, but do you want me to play the original? Okay.
Yeah.
Many of the sacred geometric crop circles, when spun, show us propulsion technologies.
And he said to me, there's no way a Doug or a Dave or somebody could fake the crop circle phenomena. There's no way you can melt the cellulose in a whole field and make those plants bend over the way they do, and then keep growing. There's no way that you could fake elongated nodes, or what he called expulsion cavities when the node blew out. There's no way to fake molten iron ore in the middle of the field, you know, in the middle of the night. And he said most of the crop circles are real.
Here we have these.
Okay, so that's where we picked that up again.
We missed the spin. We didn't get it spinning, but that's okay. You showed.
Oh, we did get it spinning.
Clip.
No, we did get it spinning.
It was just starting, but once it gets going and the inside goes the opposite way, it's 0 point. Oh my God.
Well, we showed it. We showed it. No, Patty?
It didn't.
I didn't see it.
Patty?
No,
okay, let me just move ahead and see if there was more on that on this particular. No,
Yeah.
there wasn't any more. There wasn't any more. I played all that there was for this.
Okay.
On this particular, video that I'm sharing.
Okay.
It did show the here. I'll play it again just so you can see it. Like, let me screen share. It wasn't very long, but it did show the interior spinning in the opposite direction, which you said was 0 point. So let's take a look.
Crop circles, when spun, show us propulsion technologies.
Now it's going opposite in the center.
Yeah, but it's supposed to go really fast.
And he said to me, there's no way.
That's all this particular clip.
It must have been the trailer.
Yeah, that's all this particular clip shows. Yeah, this is probably the trailer, perhaps, maybe. Okay, so now it's very fascinating stuff, and you're also saying that, you know, these crop circles here. Look at the condition of the crops. I mean,
that was one of 65 centerpieces in the most amazing crop circle I've ever seen. To me, that's absolutely gorgeous. It's bent, it's rolled, it's braided, and it's not green and supple. It is tan, dry, and brittle. That happened overnight, and there were 65 different centers. My favorite crop circle.
Yeah. Wow. But you're also saying that, so there's an intelligence that communicates, obviously, and not only that, these were not damaged. The people who go to try to fake it, they damage the crop and they kill it. Is that true? Is that correct, rather?
Every 3 feet, you can see where the board went down, and then they lift it up with the rope and they step forward and they push the board down. So it's a straight line every 3 feet of broken wheat.
Yeah.
When you saw Penny describing the elongated nodes and extended nodes, that's how you know you're dealing with a real crop circle. You got to get down on your knees and look at the wheat where it bends, where the node happens.
Right.
And that's where it gets interesting. And that's where Penny and William Levengood did all their research. Was but other people sent crops to them, and they studied those nodes. And Penny should explain it. I mean, this is how you can tell it's a real crop circle.
Yeah, I'm going to screen share part of one of Penny's books. I want to also screen share. First of all, before I do that, I'm waiting for this to load a little bit more. Hold on a second. 43. Let me screen share before I get to that. Your websites first, so everybody knows that your websites are. Hold on a second. We've got Patty's website first here. I'm gonna screen share this one just so everybody is. And I've been making some mistakes tonight, calling each one Patty, the other Penny, and I was confusing the two of you.
Okay.
So apologize if it seemed like I went to the wrong person for the question. So here's Crop Circle Films by Patty Greer, and so this is your website, Patty, and you have movies, crop circles, about home. You have the different films that you made here. You've been with everybody. I mean, you know everybody in the UFO. I mean, in terms of working and doing your film work and presenting it, everybody in the industry is what I meant to say.
I used to.
Yeah.
You know, I loved the industry, and there used to be a lot of very, very great researchers and experiencers and 4-star generals, but in the last 5 years, most of them died. And in a short period of time, we lost most of the great ones. And I feel like the UFO field was severely infiltrated, and they were replaced with what I feel like are actors. And I've left the field.
Yeah.
It
some of your
doesn't
films.
interest me at all anymore. I was there when it was good. But
Right.
the films really bring the best of all of it to the public. And there's the shift has hit the fan. There's the orbs and light beings. And in that movie is the most incredible orb photos I've ever seen from a woman in Australia. I mean, drop to your knees. Amazing. A lot of people get films of orbs, but this lady, hers were beyond exceptional. And Crop Circle Diaries is my final film with Penny Kelly. And, you know, a plasma question I'm curious about is, can I ask a question, tell a little brief story of how Penny and I met?
Sure.
William Levengood was between the worlds. Now, in my opinion, is that like, he was there because of course I saw him, but is that basically no longer human form, but still his plasma, but in a less dense form?
Yeah. Yeah, when you, the whole idea, each human being is a pile of consciousness. The goal in developing your consciousness is to be able to keep it in a pile once you no longer have this particular body to act through. You will create another body within 3 or 4 hours, if not immediately. Every night when you go out to dream, you are going out and you are creating other bodies to meet other people, do other things. We're phenomenal creators, phenomenal. So when Levengood, he died in September of 2013. When he died, he was not the least bit dead. He just didn't have a body. And he was at my house for months. He died in September. I think it was the following April, maybe, that I finally said to him, I got mad at him because he kept going in the cupboards and rattling all the pots and pans, and it would sound like 5,000 stainless steel pots and pans were falling down the stairs. And I would, finally said to him, Lefty, would you stop that? Go to the light. And he left. And I knew that he hadn't gone to the way station, which is one of the big cities where people go after they leave here. So then the next summer, I think it was June, July, I meet Patty.
Hey, yeah.
Did you see the movie Defending Your Life? Because it really does depict that really well. It goes to you go to Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep, and it's hysterical. I recommend everybody watch it because it really puts the concept and the idea of passing and kind of judge it. You go to a place called Judgment City and you review aspects of your life to see if you achieved what you came here to achieve, right? If we all chose this incarnation, chose our parents, chose our experiences for the lessons that'll provide for our soul to grow. If that's the case, so based on this movie, you go into this almost like courtroom, God, you really have like a prosecutor. Well, did you overcome that fear? Look at this example from, when you were 10 years old, or whatever, it's comical. It really makes you like, and then you can go there, you can eat all you want because you're kind of dead right now. So, you kind of like eat anything you want. And you have, go into past lives pavilion and you put your hand down and you see who you were in your past lives. I mean, it's so funny. It's really cute, but it's, people are dealing with this right now. I just have some friends.
Well, one of the things I would comment on is they are probably trying to get across this concept of not dying. We're really not gone. But I think what I've observed is that if you don't go to the way station and you hang around, it's because you're trying to make some more things happen. You're trying to finish your work. or you're trying to figure out something by observing your people. And I think I've thought about this since the last time we talked, Patty. And it's really a situation, I think, where Lefty had asked me to write for him for a couple of years, and I kept putting him off, saying, no, I don't get the science. I don't get the science. And finally he said, I'll be your mentor. I'll teach you. And so that's how I happened to come into so many years of plasma physics tutoring and mentoring. But I had this perception, the last time I heard Patty tell the story of how we met, was that Lefty was saying, I'm not, you know, I got you to write, but now I need this gal to make this movie so it gets out there. And so she, you know, she follows a friend of mine who goes to where were you at? You were at a conference?
I was asked to speak by the most aggressive woman of my life. I was speaking at the International UFO Congress, and she came up to me during the break and she said, you have to speak at my event. And nobody ever said that. And when she said it that directly, I said, well, I'm expensive. My price just doubled. And I mean, I was kind of kidding. And she said, whatever you need. And I thought, wow, that's weird. So she flew me out. She paid me well. And this man approached me on the first night. He was sitting at the edge of a couch. And he said, are you the crop circle lady? And I said, yeah. Did you see my talk? And he said, no. And I said, oh, how did you know? And he said, I just know. There's somebody you need to meet. Will you come with me? Now it's night. It's Michigan. I didn't know him. He's like my age, so he's old, and I don't think I'm getting in a car with him. So I kind of laughed and I said, well, I don't think so, but thank you. And he said, no, I'm serious. You need to come with me. There's somebody you need to meet. And it was Penny, and I didn't know. So the next night I see him, and I had asked questions of people during the day. Who's this guy? Does anybody know him? And somebody knew him and said, oh, he's fine. He's, you know. So the next night, there he was on the end of the couch. And he looked at me and I said, hi, tonight I'll go with you. And so it was great. We took a half-hour drive. He didn't tell me who she was. So we get out there. She's got a beautiful bowl of cherries. We're at a round table, the three of us, and we're talking for 4 hours. Now it's 2 a.m. And I said, I've got to speak in the morning. I got to go. Very nice to meet you. And I still didn't know who she was. So we get up to leave. And
I was interested in who you were.
Yeah. So I hand her one of my movies and she goes, oh, let me give you one of my books. And I said, oh, you write books? Like, yeah. So she hands me a book, and on the cover it says Penny and William Levengood, but nor did I look at it. I just did a patty, which was through the pages. And I was like, oh my God, crop circle nodes. What are they doing in your book? And she looked at him and she said, you didn't tell her who I was? And he just went, nope. And I said, who are you? And when she told me, I was somewhere between blown away and pissed. I'd been there 4 hours talking about everything but, oh my God. So anyway, she said, oh, come back. You know, he died. There's a wake. And so, you know, you can stay here. It's a B&B. So I planned to come back for 3 days. And so I came back, and I was staying at a hotel. And the first night, no, gosh, it was when he drove me back to the hotel from your house.
Yeah, I think, Stan took you back home to the hotel, or back to the hotel.
She tells me who she is. She gives me the book. I see their names, and I'm like, oh, that's crazy. So I take the book. She's got the film. He drives me back to the hotel. It's 2:30 in the morning. And I walk up to the front of the hotel, and there's 2 ladies. One was the head psychic of this big event, and some other lady, and they're smoking cigarettes. And they're both nodding and smiling at me. And I'm walking up to the front of the hotel alone. And she says, oh, who's that lovely man next to you? And I thought Stan got out of the car, and I don't see him anywhere. And I said, I'm sorry. And she said, there's a tall man next to you. Goatee, silver hair. He has a message for you. And I'm like, what? She said, he wants you to know that, oh, I can't believe I'm remembering it. He's really glad it happened, and that he meant for this to happen. And so I was like, wait. And I ran through the parking lot, throwing my arms around. And luckily, Stan looked in the rearview mirror. He backed up, and I'm panting because I ran across the parking lot. And I said, what did Levengood look like? And he goes, tall, silver hair, goatee, why? And I was like, oh, God. So these ladies had fully seen him. I still hadn't. I didn't know what he looked like because I just met Penny. And didn't even know about Lefty and all their research. I just knew I'd been in 100 crop circles and made these movies. So So Stan, you know, I looked at him and I said, why didn't you tell me who she was? And oh my God, Lefty's here. That his name is Lefty Levengood, nickname. And so Stan just looked at me and he goes, well, I did Penny's intuition courses. I just figured you'd know. And I'm like, what? And he drove
Who was
away and I'm
she?
standing
Who
there
was
like,
she? Who was she, though? You didn't tell us who she was.
she who?
The woman.
It was a man driving the car. It was Stan, the guy that I met. And the ladies were people that were at the event.
It's okay.
So
Yeah, nobody knew each other at all.
No.
It was like a comedy of, yeah, did you get this message? Did you know this?
Very interesting.
The thing was I flew out to be, you know, there for the wake like a month later. And I was going to be there for 3 days. I stayed 3 weeks. But the very first night I went to bed and I saw William Levengood. Now I looked at photos of him. I saw him walk through a wooden door. I'm laying there in Penny's house. I saw him walk through the door. He came straight up to the bed. And I remember pulling the covers slowly up. And then finally I pushed them down and I said, I'm not scared. I know who you are. And he said the very same words. He looked right at me and he said, I planned for this to happen. And it was all perfect. I'm glad you were there. I can't remember the exact words, but it was the same thing that those ladies heard him say. He said it when he walked through a wooden door. And in the morning, I said to Penny, oh, God, you know, and she said, oh, yeah, kind of like Stan did. Oh, yeah.
So let me just go over to Penny's website here so we can show everybody who's interested a little bit about Penny's website and all the books, Expand Your Consciousness. And so this is the front page of your website here, and it's very beautiful, your blog. And when you go to your catalog, you have such a nice selection of books that you've written or co-written, and they just look so wonderful. It's almost like, my gosh, if you haven't seen it, you should. The Dreams book sold out. The Pool of Creation. Interesting.
That's actually a class. It's not a book.
Oh, I see. It's a class. And what this is about. So you have some books called Consciousness and Energy. So what is the how are dreams part of that? Do you?
Part of consciousness and energy?
I mean, in a nutshell.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
So when you're going to learn how to develop your consciousness, you really need to learn how to remember your dreams and to be able to wake up in those dreams, become lucid in those dreams, because the worlds, that's plural, worlds that you walk in when you are asleep and you act in while you are asleep, that energy transfers over to the physical world. And so you can have access to power because the rules are different in other dimensions of existence, and dreams are other dimensional existences or experiences. And so that's one of the fastest ways to develop consciousness, is to develop your ability to awaken in the dream and then direct yourself in such a way that you accomplish something that you want to happen back here. So, and I won't go into an example, but that is literally what happens. Dreams are just a part of it. The classes, first you learn the brain and how it works, which is fascinating. And then you start to study dreams and you learn the language of energy so that you can read your dreams. And then you study, we have classes in which people practice clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. That's intuition 3. Intuition 4 is past lives, studying past lives, past influences. Wow. Intuition 5 is exploring multidimensional existence, and intuition 6 is power. So those are the classes. I've been teaching probably 35 years.
Well, you know what? I'm going to screen share another image of some plasma, and maybe you can tell me what the difference is between this plasma and the plasma balls that we were looking at in Patty's video.
Okay.
This is plasma. What's the difference? Do you know?
Well, let me say that that's a famous fake photo. It isn't really.
Okay. I'll show you another one.
Okay. So let me just say this, the shape and the arrangement of the clouds in that photo that you just showed those are real. The coloration is not.
Okay.
This is a beautiful, beautiful.
The Cat's Eye Nebula, yep.
Okay, so when you have, let me just say a basic concept involving plasma. When you have two plasmas that interact, they create sometimes, if they're not in harmony with one another, they're slightly off, they will create these two will create a third frequency or field. And that third field is called a binaural field or binaural frequency. And so then that third field will be in existence as long as these two are interacting. And what you see in this picture on the screen is like this interaction of these fields creating other fields that then bulge out and become a real force factor. So
all right, let me screen share another clip really quick about this whole what you're talking about, because it looks like this is a source of energy that we could and should be harnessing. Let's take a listen to this for a minute.
One place where they're creating fusion is here at the Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory. This is Arturo Dominguez, part of the Science Education Department here at PPPL.
The main challenge is that what we're trying to do is, if you think about it, very extreme. We're trying to make on Earth a sun that's effectively 10 times hotter than our sun.
Fusion is the process in which atoms, like hydrogen, come together and fuse, releasing large amounts of energy. To do this on Earth, however, scientists have to heat up the atoms to super hot temperatures, even hotter than the sun. When hydrogen gas is heated up that hot, the electrons separate and it creates this charged gas called plasma. These temperatures, the particles in the plasma are moving at great speeds and colliding, a wild soup of charged particles. But for fusion to occur, we need to contain this crazy hot soup, keeping the particles close enough so they collide and fuse together, releasing the energy that we want to collect. But how can we contain and control something that is 6 to 10 times hotter than the sun? The answer? Magnets. Well, how can magnets help us control the super hot hydrogen plasma? Turns out magnets don't only affect metals, but also moving charged particles. And our plasma is full of those.
Similar to, for example, the northern lights, that you have the magnets, the magnetic fields going from the south to the North Pole. The plasma will get stuck on the magnetic field lines and move both to the North and the South Pole.
Look as the plasma bends and compresses as a magnetic field is produced through the coils. This effect is critical for magnetically confined fusion, keeping the plasma controlled and contained and ready to create fusion.
What it actually looks like is if you've got a magnetic field going in a certain direction, like here, like in my arm, then the electrons and the ions will spiral around that magnetic field. So it's a way of confining plasma to stick on this one direction of movement. Now, if we get that one dimension of movement and turn it into a torus, then we have a toroidal confinement of plasma.
Here at the PPPL, they use what is called a tokamak reactor, which comes from a Russian word describing the donut shape of this magnetic chamber. Using special coils in and around the donut, a magnetic field is produced through the inside of the tokamak. The plasma particles then spiral tightly around the magnetic fields, staying contained in a small space and off the walls of the reactor. Fusion doesn't produce CO2 greenhouse gas emissions. Plasma is produced from abundant resources. It's safe, and there's no long-lasting radioactive waste. So with fusion being such an attractive source of energy, why aren't we using it more to produce a large amount of the world's energy?
So that's the point that I kind of wanted to make here from this explanation here, is that if it is this powerful, if there are these so much, that's like a supernova, right? I mean, that's uncontrolled, but if you can control this reaction and harness this, why aren't we using this technology? Is it because, we won't be able to continue to be their debt slave surety for their globalist debts? Is that why?
Well, I don't know what
Reframe.
they're, that's possible. A lot of stuff that he said is really pretty accurate. The couple of things I would point out, they're trying to create a sun. They
Right.
believe that the sun is extremely hot. It's really not. And so that's one of the beliefs that, well, we got to get all this heat, etc. You don't have to do that. You can create plasma in the lab. Cold fusion is absolutely doable. Superconducting energies at room temperature. I know how to create that myself. And I only need probably $100 worth of stuff to do it. There's so much of what I'm going to call fancy science talk. There's so much what I'm going to call extrapolation of the old science. They're trying to extrapolate from the old ideas to create something new and go beyond that. And you don't have to do that. You have to drop all that old thinking and just focus on this over here. Just focus on the fact that, he had his arm out here. Well, there's, this becomes a current, and then, you get this spiraling field around it. The field actually holds or becomes a plasma. As soon as you have a field containing particles, you have a plasma. And he's again talking about, we got to create a gas and it's going to be full of particles. Got to keep the particles off the wall of this particle generator.
Right.
And you do that. So I'm just going to say that they are learning. It's wonderful to see people trying to figure out how to use some of these things. But here's the thing. If your eyeball is a plasma, is a collection of plasmas, how much heat, how much power, how much of a particle generator do you need to maintain that eyeball? Not much. If your lungs, if your teeth, if your fingernails, if your skin, it's all plasma, how do we explain that in terms of all that fancy and very, very expensive experimentation going on that I love to see? And yet what I know from my experience in the lab, and I'm not even a scientist, I'm the consciousness researcher in all this, but I love science and had always been fascinated by, how does that work and why? What makes that go? And so that whole business of getting things to work and not understanding what we already are, that there's a big gap there. And so people put together these big, fancy, expensive, superpower generating things and think they got to do this and that. And, there were some things we did for $2.50 in the lab that were knock your socks off in terms of understanding principles of plasma. And so here we are. And granted, if you're trying to make a sun, yeah, you might want to have that kind of big fancy equipment and generate a lot of plasma.
Right.
But yeah.
Well, I think the whole point is that, like Patty's talking about with this, the interaction with the earth, it seems to generate, and we know this from Nikola Tesla. I mean, this isn't news, that there's radiant energy. We know this. And so, the fact that humanity's being denied this, technology and ability to use radiant energy, is it, what do you think about that? What do you think about, and do you think that, this is where 0 point energy, is what Patty's talking about, where you're using, seeing how these gears and these crop circles, if you rotated them, you create 0 point. Why aren't we using that now at this point?
I think that some of the really good, really good engineering and experimentation has been done by Black projects. And so it's not in the public. I mean, we may have paid for it, but it's not there for us. Second thing, if we knew what they could do with that energy, which I'm just going to say, for example, they can erase you. so you never existed and there's no trace of you and there's no blood, then how would people feel about that if they knew that that was being used? Patty got hit by an energy weapon, what, 2 years ago?
3.
Something like that. 3. Yeah.
Energy weapon is negative spinning plasma.
That was my next question, Patty, regarding
I'm
directed.
getting a headache just thinking about it. But to be honest, I still have a hard time walking. No, I got really hurt.
Yeah, you talked about that.
It was a very bad.
Because if you can direct a particular frequency of energy at an individual, that just stops the heart, boom, they're done. It just wipes out their eyes, boom, they're blind. That wipes out their stomach, well, that is the end of their diet, etc. Or that hurts a part of the spinal cord and any one of those centers, nerve plexus that move up, that live and grow and operate along the spine. You can destroy the operations that are served by that nerve plexus. And if that's the lower half of the body, there goes your legs. So there are things, I don't think that the people who have developed some of these weapons want us to know that they have those capacities. If you know how to use those, you can completely control the weather, completely. And in multiple ways that make it look kind of natural. And nobody ever has to take responsibility for the damage that, they do to somebody else's crops or to somebody else's equipment. You can weaken a railroad trestle so that it collapses the next time a train goes over. You just sort of dissolve some of the supports in that. There's so much. So that's why I think we have not been privy to it. And the old science is still being taught in schools. I don't think very many people really understand plasma or plasma science. And so it isn't being taught because they don't understand it. Why? Because it's just barely being taught in colleges and only by the plasma physics, what do you call those, nerds? That really get into that kind of stuff, which I don't know, maybe I'm a nerd because I really get into that kind of stuff. But that's something that if we had access to that, some of the work that's being done now makes it clear that there are other rules. I wish I had some pictures. I'm going to do some drawings of plasma and what happens when you change the structure of the plasma just a little bit. You change all the characteristics of the material, whether that's a metal or a biological thing or. So, yeah, we'd have a whole different energy system. We're on the cusp. I'm going to say we're on the edge of that right now.
And so I'm screen sharing one of Patty's other films. This is a trailer to one of your other films, Patty, if you wanted to talk about that. I loved how you have the cosmos in the beginning, and it's all plasma, and it's the field of potentiation, isn't it? It's their potential field, isn't it? It's plasma. Is this the field this morphogenic field around our body that has different layers of I guess different magnetic fields around our body that connect to different levels of consciousness? Yeah, is that how you would explain that?
And I think the more control, the more
Go ahead, Patty.
you have of your life and your energy fields, the more you're going to be able to control your plasma field. I do, before we end, want to talk about the reason that they're hiding crop circles above and beyond anything, and it's the charge density plasma that's creating superseeds. But I have nothing but great news to end this show with as far as the charge density plasma, because Lefty and Penny did figure out how to recreate it in the lab, and there's a machine that can bring us superseeds to bring back the food supply, and that's why they're hiding crop circles. The seeds are growing 30 to 400% more food and biofuel per plant, with up to 75% more nutrition per seed. So that's why they're pretending that crop circles are made by a couple of drunk blokes that they just pulled out of the bar, and they got their boards and ropes and they went and made 409 flawless circles in Fibonacci sequence spirals. I mean, oh my God, drunk and brilliant at the same time. And then they floated away because there were no footprints. You know, why would they go to this much trouble to get people to not believe in crop circles? It's because the seeds are super seeds that are in these formations, and we're going to be able to really bring back our food supply once we get rid of the old paradigm thinking and bring in these simple technologies. Crop circles are made by what we talked about, these spinning plasma fields, but Lefty and Penny designed this simple machine that I have a photo of in the film, and nobody even knows it's the charge density plasma machine. But when she said we made something for $250, this thing might have been $500, but it's not an absolute fortune, and it can change the world. And what did I get for presenting it? A lot of trouble. Yeah. So the good news is I'm still here. I'm still alive. It's kind of hard to walk. It hurts, but the movies are out there, and Crop Circle Diaries, everybody has to see it at cropcirclefilms.com. Penny's in it. I'm in it. Lefty's in it. We tell half the stories we did here, but also about the consciousness creating crop circles, where I myself had an experience where I saw an image of a crystal castle, and I was so blown away because I realized, oh my God, I was there. It's where they took me when I was whatever in the crop circle. And the very next day, the crystal castle showed up in a crop circle in England. And it happened in the few hours of night when there's darkness, which is 10:30 here, but 5:30 in the morning there. And as I was discovering, you know, these images and remembering this experience, bam, that crop circle was laid down. So here I am, and across the world, my plasma field had communicated bottom left to the earth herself, who knowingly we work together. I mean, she knows she can use me. I made her 8 films, you know, and didn't do research. I just listened. So yeah, there's the crystal castle. And it showed up the very next day. And it was only the castle. There was not the circle above it, only the castle. And it had no circles. So I went on the air and I was all excited. I said, there are even teardrops, 5 below the 5 pillars. There's no circles in that whole formation. And the very following 2 days later, I think it was, the circle showed up with the goddess inside it. And she was a lot bigger than the castle. And I was like, okay, okay. I hear you speaking to me.
This is huge implications, though, in terms of consciousness. No, isn't it? Isn't it, Patty? That's a really excellent example of how our own consciousness can manifest. Penny, how do you? I mean, we have like roughly 15 minutes left here. What on earth is going on? We are so much more powerful than we understand ourselves to be. If we're manifesting, if the earth itself is manifesting these crop circles, if Patty's, I told you I was getting that confused. If Patty, I got it, is manifesting these, crop circles, what is it that people are missing? What does humanity need to know about what's going on with this? And is plasma the missing? Is it the missing piece to the puzzle? Because they kept it from us. I mean, they say it's the fourth element or state of matter. It's a state of matter, right? But it's really the first, isn't it? Because you kind of need it first.
Yeah. Exactly, it is. And I think let's go back to basics. So most of science is trying to fit consciousness in around all of their precepts and concepts and teachings. That is never going to work, because consciousness is the energy that is, let's just say that you're not going to fit consciousness around pre-existing concepts. You can't bring it in from the outside. You have to start with that as your base. When you have a full-blown Kundalini experience, you're having an experience very similar to what we did with those seeds. we unleash their full potential by hitting them with this energy. That's what Kundalini is. It's this massive influx of energy that moves through the system, blows your mind apart and restructures you. Okay.
Is
When you-
that, I'm sorry,
Go
but
ahead.
is that, can you tell people what Kundalini actually is? I mean, is that like orgasm energy, or is that a different energy?
It's that and 1,000 things more. Okay. It's electromagnetic energy that moves through you and moves you back into what your source is. That's the I am. Some people call it the void. Some people call it the source. Some people say it's God, or Allah, or, you know, whatever. But when you go into that state of being, there is no consciousness. There's only this very simple awareness. And I'm telling you, it's powerful beyond. When I say it's simple, that doesn't mean it's weak or anything like that. It's this paralyzing, absolutely stunning orgasmic bliss, that it's not an orgasm in the sense of having sex. It's that feeling of orgasmic pleasure that is frozen. You're frozen in that. And when you're in that, there's no past, there's no future, there's no present, there's no you. There's just this immense and unending field of awareness, or space of a cosmos of awareness. I'm not, there's no words that can even describe it. But it's velvety black. It's absolutely silent and still. And there's these little tiny dots of light in it. And you know that you are made of those lights. That's all that you know. I am those lights. I am, period. That's it. So when you
same thing? Is it the same thing, same experience, like when you step on a really sharp object and the pain is so intense that you see stars in front of your eyes? I mean, is that like the same kind of thing? I'm specifically referring to when you step on Legos.
I've been there.
Yeah, I know.
After 4 kids and 9 grandkids.
Exactly. Especially the sharp, pointy blue one. Sorry.
It's very blissful. I mean, there's no bliss associated with a Lego. When you are in this source state, when you're in this I am state, and that's what the ancients called it, the I am, then you are frozen in this absolute utter bliss in which you do not want to move. You do not know who you are. You do not have a house or a dog or a cat or Legos on the floor in your bed or any of that kind of stuff. It's just this perpetual, unmoving state of utter bliss. And when you come out of that, you start to move. And as soon as you start to move, you start to feel movement. That's when consciousness appears. The awareness transforms to consciousness.
Someone's uncomfortable with our orgasm analogy. Sorry about that, but you know, we're trying to understand a sensation that, you know, if you've never experienced it or understood, you know, what it is, and you'd really, because the way you describe it sounded like one. So
I'm
it's
going
like,
to say something that's really important. Why do you think sex has been made bad? Why do we not talk about orgasm? Why do we have all these rules and do's and don'ts about sex? It's because in the ancient days, that was well understood as one of the techniques for achieving this high state of consciousness. When you are in that, nobody can manipulate you. You have power. And that power is, they don't want you to have that. The powers that be, they don't want people to reach that status or that kind of consciousness. And that's the bottom line. And so the Christians were the ones who really made all of the sexual thing not okay. They made up terms like this is an immoral act. They, I mean, if you really understand the history, it's really sad. Because we lost our connection to nature. We lost our connection to our God. head, our I am, our source. We lost our own power. We lost our own wisdom. We lost our critical thinking ability. All of that, just believe. That's what the Christians taught. Just believe. Don't think.
Right.
Don't figure it out. Just believe.
But
so here we are.
But this is like we're going through this right now again, where we can't go outside, you can't go to the beach, you can't do anything. They had closed the parks and everything. They're still trying to disconnect us from from nature and connecting to nature, which goes back to the very beginning of our program where Patty was talking about her connection to nature and how she has followed that and always loyally followed that connection to nature, which brought her to her experiences. And so it's off the beaten path, but it's where you needed to go, Patty. And and it brought Patty to a place of discovery and beautiful place that she could share with everybody. Definitely.
Yeah.
Another
Patty.
thing that really got me here was my willingness to listen to that little voice.
Oh,
And
yeah,
that is how my movies were made. That's why I went to Mexico and took the train down the California coast in February, not knowing why. I was like, which trip should I do? Oh, screw it. I'll do both. And then 2 days after I came home, we're not traveling anymore. And considering what we're hearing about the airlines, it could be a long time before we have a nice vacation to Mexico again from America.
Yeah, who knows?
But I have one more question for Penny. And I'm still stuck on the me seeing Lefty with my own eyes walk through a door. When people see a ghost, and I can't say I've had it happen very many times, but definitely it happened there. So to think of him having all of his plasma field organized still because he was so conscious when he left, but the density was so much thinner was why I couldn't, why other people couldn't see him.
right.
But also I had raised my frequency to the point where I see plasma. I see less density plasma. So I don't often see ghosts, luckily, but he was intending to meet me and to bring me to meet you. And to realize he had been gone for a year and that he worked that hard and that you and I were thrown together so in such a humorous way. It was really very phenomenal. But my last question to Penny is this. When I would walk into a crop circle, unless you're up on a hill looking down and you can see it's over there and you can count 5 lines where the tractor tires go, which are called tram lines. And then you say, okay, I'm going to hike down there and go 5 tram lines left and then just walk in. Short of that, most crop circles, you have no idea where they are. You just know it's somewhere in that acreage. Good luck picking the right tram line and you just head in. But as soon as I was close to a crop circle, the hair would go up on my arms and chills and tingle completely covered my body. And I was always trying to think of how could I describe that? And all I could think of was the frequency was so high. The electromagnetic field was so much more enhanced, but I'd like to hear your perception. That's what the voices told me, but little hair standing up and people could see it.
Yeah, that is exactly what you experience in those moments. The charge, the energy in those crop circle formations. I have heard phenomenal stories from different people about things that changed in their physiognomy and in their hormones and in their health when they were in those fields for any length of time. So you do feel the difference in the energies. It's much more forceful. If you've ever been not struck by lightning, but right next to where lightning struck, which I have been once, twice maybe, but one time it was so close. It was just a few, I'm going to say maybe 3 or 4 yards away. So that would be about 12 feet. When that lightning hit and drilled into the earth, every hair on my head went this way. My eyebrows stood straight out. It was just like everything that was movable and flexible was moving into alignment with the fields of that lightning strike. Lightning is plasma, and it spirals down. So that's what you feel when you're in a crop circle. You feel the increase, what I'm going to say, not only number of electromagnetic fields, but the rate at which they're interacting and the increased voltages that they produce, et cetera, et cetera.
It did feel like increased voltage. And what was great was that it's so palpable that the very first crop circle I walked in, I had my daughter with me, and she was humoring me, and she was like, "Oh, I'm so not into this." But it was raining, we were cold, it was wet. And as soon as I felt that energy, that enhanced energy, and little hair stood up, I turned around and I looked at the people behind me, and my daughter went, "Yeah, I feel it." So even though she was kind of begrudging, she totally felt it. You can't help it. And
That's
then the couple people behind us, one was the Archdruidess of Stonehenge. I was bringing her in her first crop circle, Victoria. She was like, "Oh my God, this is fabulous." So we all feel the energy. So crop circles, I can't believe that people still don't get it. And my movie won Best Film and People's Choice at the International UFO Congress Convention the year I put it out, 2017, right before I got hurt. And still, it was so well hidden that I put it out for free. cropcirclefilms.com/free, so people can see it for free. And it is getting out, but it sure would be nice to be able to have support for the real information, the books and the films that are really bringing us free energy, charge density plasma to bring back the food supply, and all these really important advanced sciences that are being hidden in these underground bases that hopefully are being blown up every day. How about that explosion that just happened near Nevada, near Yellowstone, they said, and you could feel it all the way to California? I'm just going, oh, goody, one more base down.
So you're saying that, look, I mean, we know that our ground, our soil has been, depleted because of the GMO seeds that have been planted, and that's a shame. But are you saying that but how can we recreate this effect for our own crops?
That's what I'm hoping. We're going to be able to get the information to a lab that is, able to reproduce. But how hard is that machine, Penny?
There's nothing to it. You just get two aluminum plates and you put them maybe 4 or 5 inches apart, and you generate an electrostatic field for 45 seconds to a minute, and the seeds have been treated. Then you let them sit and heal themselves. For like 4 to 6 weeks. And in that 4 to 6 weeks, they are going to focus on a couple things. One is they're going to completely redo their chemistry to be able to handle that kind of event in case they ever encounter it again. Second thing they're going to do is detoxify themselves from all of the oxidation processes that happened when that energy hit them. And the third thing they're going to do is produce antioxidants up the wazoo, so that when you plant them in the ground, not only do they have more energy because they retain some of that electrostatic energy as a propulsion source, if I can use that term, and they are ready to go gangbusters. Same thing happens with water. You can treat water and then plant seeds and water them with that water. You get the same effect. There's 1,000 ways for us to enhance our food supply. There are 1,000 ways to heal ourselves. All sorts of energy machines are now out there in which you can use to generate frequencies that remove viruses, especially a lot of the viruses that were given out in the 50s and the 60s for polio, measles, mumps, all that stuff. What happened with those, which I think you mentioned, Louisa, is in Judy Mikovits's book, which is Plague of Corruption, I think. And she talks about they cultured all those vaccines in mouse brains or mouse tissue, and the mouse had viruses that were not affecting the mice, but were picked up by the vaccines and then injected into people. And then those viruses went dormant until the immune system broke down enough, and then they create havoc, whether it's cancer or hepatitis, that kind of thing.
Until 5G was turned on. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah,
until 5G was turned on, and then it broke down the
immune system. Yeah. Yeah, you have to have oxygen in the tissues. Oh my gosh, we I think are on the edge of figuring out where we fit in this whole microbiome, in this whole Earth microbiome. Yeah. What's our role? What affects us? How do we improve and become superior beings? What's our full potential? We don't know that until we unfold ourselves, and we haven't hardly started.
Well, we are out of time now, ladies. This has been a 2-hour marathon. This went by so quickly. There's so much more. I'm telling you, we open up a can of worms with every corner that we turn, and it's just the time just went by so quickly. And I just enjoyed having both of you amazing ladies on the GoldFish Report again for our Steel Magnolias series, which really highlights just amazing women like yourselves. And I'm so privileged and honored that you both joined me. I hope you'll come back again sometime soon.
You bet. Yep. Thank you, Louisa.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Let me just ask you if you had any final thoughts that you wanted to leave with our viewers today, Patty.
Well, my final thought is, as we look at our plasma field and the thought that our thoughts create our reality, as we go in our car around other people and see everybody with all their fear factors going, we have to realize that what happened was the news media sent out all this fear porn information, and that's why everybody's panicking. What happened was they set the plasma field to negative spin of fear, everybody's, you're going to die. And so I think that we need to really consciously bring each one of ourselves back to center and say, I know something more true than what they're telling us, and I choose not to be fearful, and I choose not to obey rules and regulations that are not in the best interest of myself or my world. And I think when every person takes that stand and says, I will not comply, I will not be fearful, then everything changes. So if the three of us, Patty Positive, Louisa, and Penny Positive, can set the intention for a lot of fearless moments moving forward and a lot of huge arrests happening from the top down, we're going to see the evolution of this world like nothing we've ever imagined. And I believe we are in for a major, beautiful, and graceful jubilee.
Oh, that's wonderful, Patty. Thank you. And Penny, I wanted to ask you for final comments. And I just wanted to say that we didn't get to talking about that intuition, inner voice, and that we'll have to save that for next time, unless you wanted to add that. But did you, what final comments or words or comments do you have to say for our viewers? Would you like to leave them with?
Just one thing, get excited about the future, because it's what we create.
It's what we create. That's it. So power of manifestation, folks. And we didn't really even get into all of that in detail because we just, there's so much to understanding how it operates, understanding the state of matter that we have to manipulate and how to manipulate it. It's the information is there. We know that they already know it. They don't let us have it, but we'll figure it all out because it's in the morphogenic field. We can all access it. Right? It's in the collective consciousness. Just tap into it and we'll get it, right? Well, everybody, thank you so much to all the people, all the viewers who joined us in the live chat. I've been watching your messages and comments as we went along, and I really appreciate you joining us. To all the viewers who watched us live, and to all the viewers who are going to be watching this recording, thank you very much for watching. Give us a thumbs up on the video. It does help to circulate this far and wide. And I will have the website link links in the description section here for both Penny and Patty. And I do look forward to continuing this conversation again. And let's hope that we have the president release some new technology pretty soon, since his uncle did have access to all the Nikola Tesla files after he passed away. So let's just hope that happens soon enough. But as we do see, as Penny did say, I mean, it is coming unglued. I mean, the old guard is on its way out, and it is time for humanity to evolve, and I think we're going to get there. So thank you everyone so much for joining us. Both of you, thank you so much. I just so adore both of you wonderful women. I really admire you, and I'm so privileged to have you on GoldFish Report. So thanks for joining me, and this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report. Thanks to all of our live chat viewers, and everybody have a great night. We'll be back tomorrow night. I forgot to mention before I turn that off, but we'll be back tomorrow night with my weekly POTUS report as usual. More politics, folks. So have a great night, everyone.